Hey guys, before we get started, a quick message to those of you subscribed to me. Do you like when you can easily find my videos as soon as I upload them? YouTube, as useful and innovative as it is known to sometimes experiment with that functionality. And as of some extremely recent updates, there is now officially no way for you to be sure that you'll get my videos when they're uploaded unless you click the little bell icon in the doobly-doo. I'm not saying that you have to, I'm just saying that if you're interested in what I'm doing, it would really mean a lot to me. Thanks for your time, let's get back to it. This train of thought is a little more speculatory, so I decided to keep it separate from our focus on Gamzee as a character. But linking Rage to Homestuck's theatrical elements might also tell us about the abilities and power sets Rage players might exhibit, and that seems worth discussing on its own, so here we are. Obviously, reading Rage as the aspect that rules over Homestuck's reality as a play lends itself to Text Talk's theory of Rage as the aspect that describes plot contrivance, and I could argue there's even a link between the two in the text itself. The MSPA command terminal that Caliborn and Gamzee unlock using the tragicomic mask keys allow Caliborn to talk directly with the author. Specifically, the ghost of the author, who somehow communicates through the machine after being murdered by Lord English. As the original author of Homestuck, the ghost is now the god in the machine operating the story, and his awareness of Homestuck's larger context lets him give Caliborn the scoop, enabling his rise to power as Lord English in the first place. The term Deus Ex Machina, or God in the Machine, originally refers to the practice where actors playing gods would be entered into a theater play by an elaborate mechanism built into the stage, usually by crane or a trap door. The god character was often used at the end of a tragedy, using their divine powers to wrap up remaining plot threads and bring the story to a close. Of course, now the term is a shorthand for whenever a story resolves problems in highly unlikely and often surprising ways, often considered a hallmark of bad, contrived writing. Actually, this might solve a mystery nobody knew needed solving: the question of Gamzee's missing dream ghosts. A lot of fans assume the story's logic breaks down with the dream bubbles because Hussey got lazy or whatever, mostly based on the perceived absence of 4 particular characters who should, on first glance, have more dream ghosts. These characters are Mina and Aranya, Vriska, and Gamzee. But Mina and Aranya actually do have ghosts in the bubbles. Both have multiple versions of themselves show up for the final battle against Lord English. Vriska does only have Vriska, which is kinda weird, but John's retcon is bizarre enough that I can kinda believe it would collapse all potential versions of Vriska into the weird Schrodinger's Vriska setup the comic gives us. Hold this thought till the epilogue, I guess, which leaves only Gamzee. If some combination of Doc Scratch or Lil Cal always clues Gamzee in to the hidden mechanisms that run the theater of Homestuck, then there's at least one plausible way that he might know about an obscure game mechanic that might answer this riddle. We see it with Dave's first major use of time travel, the return to the Alpha timeline that results in the creation of Dave Sprite. Before leaving his dead-end timeline, Dave tells Rose, the timeline's last living survivor, to try going to sleep as a way to preserve herself past the end of the session. He says that dream selves are somewhat outside the natural flow of time, and once Rose is asleep, reality simply fades out of existence around her and then she merges with the consciousness of Alpha Rose, causing the latter to inherit her consciousness and memories. And this merger process does not seem to produce a ghost. So what if Gamzee did something similar? We know he systematically hunted down all the other trolls in at least one Doom timeline, so what if he does it in all of them? Whether he kills them himself or not, if Gamzee outlives every other troll in every timeline in this manner, then we have canonical basis for Hussey's statement that Gamzee hasn't died in any timeline he's aware of, because every such timeline would end with Gamzee falling asleep and merging with the Alpha. This would also mean Gamzee houses the consciousness of all his doomed selves, and that every single version of Gamzee would get to live out the truth that he is his own mirthful messiah. No clown left behind, I guess? But there's something else I want to talk about, something more specific. If Gamzee views Homestuck as a play, then another facet of his power may be the ability to understand the various masks that characters wear during their adventure, and the corresponding roles they take on as they perform their relationships with the world. Only in Homestuck, roles that define how characters act are codified game mechanics, classes, and I've recently found myself arguing that characters perform the behaviors of the classes they're assigned, but also often emulate, or try and fail to emulate, other classes' behaviors, through a mechanic I've taken to calling roleplay. Most characters only roleplay classes they absorb through culture, whether it's their interests or, more commonly, role model adult figures called ancestors. Having insight into and power over roleplay would make Gamzee uniquely dangerous because it would give him the ability to warp how other players see themselves and each other, confusing them by alienating them from their own true roles. By inviting Terezi to adopt the persona of Red Glare, he encourages her to take on the role of a knight. As a result, Terezi gives a knight's performance in one of Homestuck's theatrical flashes, Seer Ascend. She's even cast in another knight's shadow, imitating Dave's own Ascension flash. It would also make him uniquely flexible. Understanding all the roles played in the story, Gamzee would be able to wear any of those masks to complete whatever objective is at hand. This is likely why Gamzee's Joker-kind specibus allows him to use every weapon. We see this ability when Gamzee introduces himself to Jane with music boxes originally owned by Aradia Megiddo, a maid. Maids and sylphs are linked to the fairy archetype and are often referenced as imaginary beings. Fairies, ghosts, vampires, demons, and in Gamzee's case, an elf. The fairy classes are also associated with healing and creating new things, and Gamzee happens to perform this role too, healing his troll friends by reviving them as sprites, merging their personalities together in the process. Maids are also repeatedly shown to have some passive self-resurrection or survivability perks, and Gamzee seems to make use of that benefit by acting out the maid's role. Caliborn eventually learns that Gamzee's immortal for arbitrary reasons that make no sense. Of course, we later find out that it's due to plot armor. Because Gamzee is relevant to later events in the story, Gamzee is aware he cannot die. Wearing fairy wings labeled with the masks of comedy and tragedy, Gamzee evokes maids as ones who are made of their aspect. In his case, made of rage. Rage taking the form of theatrical contrivance. But all of Gamzee's creations are abominations, and his form of immortality is brutal and painful for him, especially since his natural inclinations invite destruction, no matter what part he consciously tries to act out. This is a common side effect of roleplay. Homestuck seems to lean on a know-yourself-first approach to identity, as characters often confuse their own personalities with what they wish they were, commonly while trying to emulate an ideal or person they view with admiration. This tends to lead to failure and confusion for role players, as their own instinctive tendencies come out even when they're going for something entirely different. Gamzee is subject to these negative effects, but to him, it doesn't seem to matter. He's just barely good enough at acting like these classes to accomplish the goals he sets out to achieve, and the rest of us just have to deal with it. Of course, many would argue that theater has nothing to do with rage and everything to do with Gamzee belonging to the Purple Blood caste. Since several Purple Bloods and Hive Swap share Gamzee's clown motif, and one pair even evokes the comedy and tragedy symbolism. But just as Zephros's Rustblood status encourages him to think in terms of time, or Damek's Bronzeblood encourages him to think in terms of breath, I believe it's possible these cultists are being societally pushed into thinking in terms of rage, the aspect of their caste's true sign, Capricorn. So I'll be interested in observing how they relate to the aspects of their true signs and seeing to what extent any of them are linked to rage. Not to mention comparing them to characters that we know are rage-bound, such as our hero Zephyros Trito. Sports and wrestling both share some similarities to theater, the inherent artifice of the experience and the distinct roles for every participant to follow, and Nikki Mula, an indigo blood interested in wrestling, even lists muscular theater as one of her troll call personality bullet points. One of my biggest YouTube inspirations, Super Eyepatch Wolf, has actually done a fantastic video on the theatrical elements of wrestling that you can check out here if you're interested. So at least so far the pattern is present, if complicated, in Hive Swap. I'm not necessarily claiming this interpretation of Rage as canon or anything, I just thought it'd be an interesting thing for you guys to talk about and consider as we get to know the trolls through the Hiveswap Friend Sim and Hiveswap Act 2. This video exists thanks to the support of my wise cohort of patrons. If you'd like to summon more videos like this onto your screen, then you can join them. Also make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss another video. That's all for now. Until next time, keep rising.